So again, since I was not recording, the key ideas are, again, if the signs are the same and you're multiplying, so if you got a negative times a negative, that's a positive. If you got a negative divided by a negative, that's a positive. If the signs are different, so if you multiply with one number positive, one number negative, you get a negative. If you divide with different signs, you got a negative divided by a positive. If the signs are different, the answer will be negative. But the next thing we got to fill in here is right here where it says reciprocal. So let me write down a couple examples of what reciprocals are. So for example, if I gave you like, if I gave you like 2/3, can anybody tell me what's the reciprocal of 2/3? Yeah. Yeah. You just flip it over. So what would it be? Yeah. Yeah, so it'd just be 3/2. So reciprocal, you just take the fraction and flip it over. So the reciprocal of 2/3 would be 3/2. So that would look like that. So there's one example. Then if I gave you like, I don't know, what should we do? If I gave you like -5/3. So what would that be if you flipped it over? Yeah, Dewan? Yes, 3/-5. Now, usually though, I think I told you already that if you have a negative in a fraction, I want you to put it in the numerator, okay? So on the side over here, let me write this down. So if you have, Dewan said 3/-5. So if you have 3/-5, that's the same thing as -3/5 is the same thing as the negative of 3/5. So those are all the same. Because if you have a positive divided by a negative, that gives you a negative. Or if you have a negative divided by a positive, that'll also be a negative. So you can write it any one of those three ways. But again, the way that I prefer you draw it or write it would be this way. It's just better for this class if you got a negative in a fraction to put it in the numerator. Now, of course, you can't do -3/-5. Okay, that wouldn't work. Why doesn't that work? Why can't you write it as -3/-5? Yeah? Yeah, because then that would be a positive, right? If you had a -3 divided by a -5, that would make a positive. So you couldn't do that. Okay? All right, so for this one, we said we're going to put -3/5, right? So -3/5. So there's another pair of reciprocals. So that pair of numbers, those are reciprocals. What if I gave you a number like 7? What's the reciprocal of 7? Yeah. Good, yeah. Because 7, like any number you can put over 1, right? So 7 is really 7/1. So then the reciprocal would be 1/7. And then what about, let's look at that first example I did, the 2/3. What if you multiply the reciprocals together? What do you get? So for example, if you took 2/3 times 3/2. What does that equal if you multiply that? Yeah, Dewan? What's that? Yeah, that would give you 6/6, right? It's pretty easy to multiply fractions. Yesterday we were doing the addition and subtraction. You had to find a common denominator, right? But when you multiply fractions, you just multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. So you don't have to find a common denominator if you're multiplying or dividing fractions. So if you just multiply straight across the top here, you get 6. And then if you multiply straight across the bottom, you also get 6. So Dewan said that was 6/6. What does that equal? Yeah. That's 1. So it's 1. Well, that means anytime you multiply two reciprocals together, the product is always 1. And that's kind of how I'm going to define it. So on that line up here, where it says reciprocal, we're going to write, let's see if I got enough room here. We're going to write, if two numbers are reciprocals, okay, so if two numbers are reciprocals, then their product is 1. I'm kind of running out of room here. So hopefully you can read that. I'll zoom in on it a little bit. So that's supposed to say if two numbers are reciprocals, then their product is 1. Okay, then they got a couple other examples here. Let me kind of separate this off a little bit here. Let's see, so how do I want to do this? Let's go kind of like this. All right, there we go. So then they have this thing written right here, which what they're trying to tell you here, I'll zoom in on this. So they have this one written right here. And what they're trying to say is 0 divided by any number. So what's 0 divided by any number? Yeah, 0. So for example, if you had, I don't know, 0 over 13, you're going to get 0. So 0 divided by any real number is always 0. And then this next one here is they're saying any number n divided by 0. So any number divided by 0 is, what's that? You guys got to speak up. Yeah, good. Thank you, Cameron. Yeah, it's undefined. So any number divided by 0. So if you did like, I don't know, if you did, I don't know, what should we use for example? -7 divided by 0. Now, if you do that on your calculator, it's going to come up with some kind of a error message if you divide by 0. But you just got to remember that if the 0's on the bottom or if you're dividing by 0, then the answer would be undefined. Division by 0 is not defined. So that's pretty much it for the notes for this. Then we just got to work out, I think we got like 7 examples we got to go through here. So let's start working on those. So let's do 1 and 2 here. All right, so in number 1, you have got 1/2 times -10 over what? What should I put the, Yeah, 1. So you want to put the -10 over 1 like that. Now you can just multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. So if you multiply straight across the numerators, you're going to get, that's going to give you -10. And if you multiply straight across the denominators, that's going to give you 2. But then you got to actually reduce that or simplify it. So what's -10 divided by 2? I'm trying to think, what are your guys? I got to get everybody's name here. What's you're Ryan? Yes. Yeah, what do you got, Ryan? -5. Yeah, -5. So you get -5. Now, the other thing you could do on this, so I'm going to rewrite it real quick, you guys. If you got that written down, that's fine. But I'm going to rewrite it. The other thing you can do is, do you guys remember cross-canceling? If you cross-cancel on this, then when you multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom, then the answer will already come out reduced or simplified. So for example, on this one, you could do right here, you could cross cancel right here, right? So you could divide both of these numbers by 2. So if you divide 2 by 2, you get 1. And if you divide 10 by 2, you get 5. Now if you multiply straight across the top, you get 1 times -5, which is -5. And on the bottom you have, or the denominators, if you multiply those now, you get 1 times 1, which is 1. And so the answer is just -5. But either way it'll work. Number 2 there, I would probably write that as -48 over -4. So is that answer going to be positive or negative? Yeah, it's going to be positive. If you divide 2 negatives, you get a positive. And then what's 48 divided by 4?
12.
Good. So that's 12. And then as long as those are on the screen right now, let's go down there and do 4 and 5. So let me slide this. You guys good with those two? So let me slide this up. Let's see if I can move my mouse here a little bit. There you go. It's about as far up as I can slide that, I think. Okay. So now, do you guys remember, what do you got to do when you divide fractions? By the way, it looks like there's a division symbol right here that's not supposed to be there. That's just supposed to be a parenthesis right there. So when you divide 2 fractions, what do you got to do? That was on, remember I gave that little, yeah, go ahead, Aiden. Yeah, keep, change, flip. So that was on that little pre-skills test that I gave you, or quiz that I gave you the other day. So you keep the first fraction. So we're going to keep that as -1/2. And then you change. So you change the division. So you keep the first fraction. Then you change the division to a multiplication. And then you flip. So you flip the second fraction over. So you take the reciprocal. And again, that is a negative of 5/6. And I told you guys just a minute ago, when you have a negative in a fraction, I want you to put it in the numerator. So go ahead and flip it over. So it'd be 6/5. But then put that negative up in the numerator like that. And then you got a negative times a negative, so you know your answer is going to be a positive. And you could just multiply straight across the numerators and straight across the denominators, but again, we're going to cross cancel first. So we've got these two numbers right here. They're both divisible by 2. So we're going to divide 2 by 2 and get 1. And we're going to divide 6 by 2 and we're going to get 3. And then now we're going to multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. So we already know it's a negative times a negative is a positive. So we just got to do 1 times 3 in the numerators. So that's 3. Oops. And then in the denominators, we're just going to multiply 1 times 5, which is 5. So we get 3/5. All right, and then we'll do number 5. So on 5, it's keep, change, flip, but we want to write this second number here as a improper fraction. We don't want to do it as a mixed number. And I don't know why that, again, that's got a weird division symbol on there. Let me slide over with this thing here. So that's just a parenthesis here. Okay. So we need to change this guy. That one. So how do we do that? Yeah.
You multiply the whole number and the denominator and then add the numerator?
Yes. Now, do I multiply 3 times -2 or do I just do 3 times 2?
3 times 2.
Good. That's the key idea right there, you guys. So take a look at that. Normally, you multiply these two together, right? And then you add that. So you do the 3 times the 2, and then you add the 2. But you cannot include the negative when you do that, or it messes it up. That should come out. So in other words, what I'm saying is, let let me undo that. We're just going to bring this negative down here, okay? So that negative, you just bring it down. That's just a negative number, okay? It's a negative 2 2/3. So bring the negative down, and then do the 3 times the 2. That gives you 6, and then plus 2 would be 8. So that's going to be 8 over 3. Now, do you see if you didn't do that? Like if you did 3 times negative 2, that would give you negative 6 plus 2 would be negative 4, and you'd have the wrong fraction. Does that make sense? So all you're doing with that negative, again, is you're just noting that that's a negative number. That's all. So don't do 3 times negative 2 plus 2. Okay, and then let's see what else we got to do here. So then I'm going to recopy the rest of this, I guess. So this is 8 over 9, and this is a division still. Okay, so now we still got to do the keep, change, flip, right? So all we did was change that second fraction from a mixed number to an improper fraction. So we're going to write 8 over 9, that's the keep. Then the change part, we're going to do change the division to a multiplication. And then the flip part, again, we could write that as negative, or we could write that as 3 over negative 8. But when we flip it, we're going to leave that negative in the numerator. So leave that negative up on top, and then just flip the 3 and the 8. Okay, then we can do some cross-canceling here again. So we can do, let's see, these two numbers are both divisible by 8. So we're going to do 8 divided by 8 here would be a 1, and 8 divided by 8 there would be a 1. And then these two numbers are divisible by 3. So we're going to do 9 divided by 3 is a 3. Let me get this out of here. That's a 3. And then 3 divided by 3 is a 1. And then we're just going to multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. We're going to remember here that we have a positive times a negative. So our answer should be negative. On top, we've just got a 1 times 1, so that's 1. And in the denominators, we just got 3 times 1 is a 3. So that one ends up being negative 1/3. Any questions so far? We got like 3 more to go, right? But 2 of them are really quick, so let's do the 2 quick ones. So I'm going to slide over here, and I'm going to do 6 and 7. So on number 6, what's 0 divided by any number?
0.
Yeah, 0. Good. So that's just 0. And then number 7, I guess I could rewrite it like this if you want me to. So negative 22 divided by 0? Any number divided by 0 is? Yeah, undefined. Now I think that's on the first quiz. By the way, the first quiz will be probably Tuesday. It'll be on 1.1 to 1.4. But people mess this up every year. They get these two backwards, these two things. Okay? So don't switch them up. If 0 divided by any number is 0, any number divided by 0 is undefined. So this is the undefined one. All right, now we just got one left. So the last one we got to do is this one right here. So number 3. So on that one, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they did that on there. So we're going to make negative 3 into negative 3 over 1. So negative 3 over 1. And then this is just a multiplication, so times 2/3. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and cross cancel. So I can cross cancel these two. Those are both divisible by 3. So I'm going to take 3 divided by 3, that's 1, and 3 divided by 3, that's 1. And then I'm just going to multiply straight across the numerators. I do have a negative times a positive. So we got a negative number times a positive fraction there. So we know the answer is going to be negative. And then I multiply straight across the top. That's going to give me 1 times 2, or if you want to think of it, it's a negative 1 times 2. That's just a 2. And on the bottom, I got a 1 times 1. So the answer is just negative 2. You guys good? All right. So let me stop this recording, and then I'll put your assignment up for you. I didn't miss any of them, did I? I think I did them all.